Welcome to another 21 Hats Dashboard. I'm Loren Feldman, and I'm here with John Arensmeyer, who is founder and CEO of Small Business Majority, an advocacy group for businesses and entrepreneurs. Welcome back, John.
Thank you, Loren. Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure. John, you've started and built businesses yourself. You run your advocacy group. You have a lot of contact with business owners through the group. I'm eager to hear, after a fairly turbulent few years we've been through, how would you assess the state of small business right now?
I would say surprisingly pretty good. I mean, there's certainly challenges. Some of the supply chain challenges have gotten better. Inflation, of course, is still an issue.
Although looking a little bit more optimistic, I would say.
Yes, it's definitely more optimistic than it was. Small business owners are resilient. They've had to make some adjustments, and inflation is not really anything they can do anything about. Workforce issues continue to be a challenge, and finding, particularly in certain industries, finding people and being able to keep them that's probably the single biggest challenge that we're hearing.
I know you're not an economist, but do you have a sense of where your members think the economy is headed? Are they preparing for a recession? Are they more optimistic than that? What do you think their outlook is?
I think we tend to hear this whenever there's a crisis, and they tend to be cautiously optimistic coming out of a situation like this. Some of that's just the nature of being an entrepreneur, but they're concerned, but they're excited also about the future. Many of them have made changes in the way they do business and the way they use technology, and so again, I would say, while there are no doubt challenges ahead, they're cautiously optimistic. I would also say, though, that those who are smaller and those who are in more under-resourced communities continue to have greater challenges. That, of course, was the case before the pandemic. So we still need to be very cognizant of the fact that the opportunities for small business tend to still be uneven. But overall, I would say it's more optimistic than you would think.
Do you have a sense of how they're dealing with the workforce issue that you referred to? I mean, this is such an unusual time in that we keep hearing that there is this potential for a recession, and yet a lot of people have never really caught up in their hiring. They're never gotten fully staffed. At this point in time, it's I think challenging for some people to figure out, do you hire now or not, with the potential for the economy to turn? Do you have a sense for how your folks are thinking about that?
Well, I think they are. They feel the challenge, and they are. There's a couple issues that keep coming up, kind of under the category of workforce. One is childcare. Childcare has become a bigger and bigger issue, particularly during and coming out of the pandemic. And for us, childcare, we look at it two ways. Small businesses need access to childcare for them, for the owners, and for the employees, but most childcare providers are small businesses, most run by women, many run by women of color and immigrants. So this is a true small business challenge. And the fact that while there was some good legislation coming out of Congress last year, it did not include anything to do with childcare. That continues to be a problem. I'd say the second sub-issue in this, and this again affects more industries and certain industries more than others, is immigration. The whole context of the border crisis has not only it prevented undocumented people from coming in, but it's also really put a damper on legal immigration, which has become a huge challenge for many small businesses. Certain industries, I'm not just talking super skilled high-tech industries, hospitality, construction, rely on undocumented labor, and that's become a real challenge. And then the third thing that we're focusing on right now is really taking a look at encouraging businesses to hire people with prior criminal records, second chance hiring, and getting rid of some, passing clean slate laws in states that get rid of some of the prohibitions on that. So businesses are really looking for any way that they can reach and recruit a variety of workers. And so there are things that we can do, but they're definitely feeling the pinch.
The immigration thing is so frustrating. I mean, my understanding is that a lot of people don't realize it, but we likely would have had a labor shortage even absent the pandemic and all that's happened, just given the immigration situation and birth rates and all that. Do you have any sense that there's hope on the immigration front? Do you see any movement there?
Boy, it's a tough issue. And and what's interesting is that this is an area where large and small businesses agree. We don't agree with the Chamber of Commerce on everything, but we definitely agree with them on solving the immigration crisis. And so you have a pretty unified business community out there wanting a fix to the problem, obviously wanting to increase legal immigration, but also wanting to get a comprehensive solution so that those who are here and undocumented can come out of the shadows and participate in our economy. And so it's very frustrating that is being overridden by unnecessary fears. And the way to manage the immigration system is to do it responsibly. You have secure borders, but you have a system that allows immigrants to come in, and then of course not.
It seems so obvious. It's just painful to keep thinking it.
Well, and the dreamers. I mean, there's widespread support for resolving that problem and removing any barriers for people who've been there practically their entire lives. So it's really, you ask me if I see hope. On the one hand, you see all the forces arrayed toward getting a solution. On the other hand, you look at the political environment, and which is very toxic, and you begin to wonder.
Are there other issues you expect to spend your time advocating for as the year progresses?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we continue to be focused on capital and making sure that we can expand, the opportunities for capital to get to people in the most smallest businesses and those in the most under-resourced communities, particularly BIPOC-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, rural businesses.
What are you trying to do there?
Well, the American Rescue Plan provided $10 billion in support for the State Small Business Credit Initiative, and that money is now flowing to the states and to the Native tribes. And we're working closely with all involved to make sure that money is being directed to businesses who need it the most. Out of that $10 billion, $500 million of that is designated specifically for technical assistance, which the most under-resourced businesses really need. So we're really excited about that. The SBA is taking steps to
that's done state by state, right?
Right. I mean, the program is national, but the money's coming from national. But yes, it's being implemented by the states and the Native tribes. You're correct.
So somebody listening to this who's interested in trying to figure out whether they might qualify for it.
Yes. Well, they need to check with their state. If they want to contact us, we can help them figure out who they should be dealing with in the state. The state entities are working with mission-driven lenders and technical assistance providers to get the money out there. So yes, it is going to come through the states. I should add, this was a program that was originally started under the Obama administration, coming out of the Great Recession, and it was quite successful. So there's a history of this working. And, in addition to that, the SBA, the Small Business Administration, is trying to expand their lending opportunities through their Community Advantage program, micro-lending program, and they've now issued a rule to loosen up the Small Business Lending Corporation moratorium and allow more types of businesses to offer, lenders to offer 7A loans. We're cautiously supporting that and making sure that there are guardrails to guard against unscrupulous lenders becoming part of that.
Let me ask you about another issue. You mentioned that you sometimes disagree with the Chamber of Commerce. I think this might be one of them. The Biden administration is looking to ban non-compete agreements. I understand that the Chamber has threatened to sue if that goes through. I believe you have a different take on that. Is that right?
We do. We do not see. Not only do we not see the value in non-competes, we see it as a tremendous impediment to entrepreneurship and to starting businesses. I ran my business for years in California, and then then I started Small Business Majority in California. California bans non-competes. Last time I checked, there wasn't a lack of business initiative in California. So basically, there's no reason for it. Legitimate.
Most of the arguments, John, tend to focus on what it does for employees. There's a belief that it will increase wages for employees because it prevents competition. But it sounds like you're arguing it's good for businesses, too.
Look, we obviously agree with those arguments as it relates to employees, but our focus and our contribution to the debate is to say this is an impediment to entrepreneurship. And look, there's nothing, a legitimate non-disclosure agreement, confidentiality agreement that's not abused, that's fine. You don't want people stealing trade secrets or client lists, but telling somebody they can't go into the same field that you are, when we now have a surge in business development, we have a surge in people wanting to be independent and do their own thing, it is absolutely antithetical to the American dream of being an entrepreneur. So yes, we absolutely would like to see this a national ban, and we're going to be commenting on the FTC proposed rule, and we're going to be providing small business owners who can speak to that, and prospective small business owners.
On another front, speaking of California, it looks like California is going to try something creative with regulation and the fast food industry, creating councils and kind of removing regulation from politicians and giving it to an industry council with representation from labor and from owners. What do you think of that?
Oh, we've actually been involved in this debate, in these discussions, and our particular focus is to represent the interests of franchisees, because what a lot of people don't realize is that there are many franchise agreements between franchisors and franchisees that are one-sided, and franchisees are often forced into doing things or cutting costs to satisfy a franchisor agreement that is not healthy for their business. Now, I'm not here to say that every franchisee is a perfect employer or that to excuse anti-employment practices by franchisees, but we want to make the case as this gets implemented that the franchisees' interests are not necessarily the same as the franchisors, and that they have a voice at the table in this debate as this law gets rolled out.
Interesting. I did not understand that perspective at all. I guess a lot will be determined by the representation on these councils.
Correct. And the councils will have franchisors and franchisees in them, and we want to make sure there's an adequate voice for franchisees. As I said, look, we're not endorsing inappropriate labor practices. If that's coming from the franchisee, that needs to change. But a lot of times they're under the gun because of their one-sided relationships with franchisors. And again, different franchises have different track records here. So it's not. I don't want to be a broad brush one size fits all.
Sure.
But there are too many cases of franchisees who, by the way, are scared to speak up. Scared to speak up about what they might be feeling in their relationship with the franchisors, because the franchisors have a tremendous amount of power over them.
And the franchisors, by and large, I understand, are very much opposed to this, correct?
Right. And this law is specifically food, fast food.
Right.
But it could be applied beyond that. I mean,
right.
This law doesn't, but at some point you could look at this beyond that.
If it worked, it could certainly spread.
No, I mean, absolutely. If there is a system where people are sitting down and having a conversation and figuring things out, and everybody, all the stakeholders have, their points of view out there, I think that's very healthy. We want to make sure that the franchisees are in that position.
Let me ask you about this. I think there seems to be a move that we haven't seen in quite a while in the direction of unionization. Unions are more popular among the public than they've been for quite some time. You see stuff happening with Amazon, with Starbucks. Do you see that as a small business issue?
I've been asked that question a number of times just in the last week, because as you say, there is this movement. We have not heard anything from our network, from our small business owners on this, and it's prompted me to think that we may want to do a little digging and questioning, because we're constantly doing surveys and talking to them. But no, we have not heard this, and we have generally viewed unionization issues as not necessarily small business issues. That said, we've often aligned with unions on many issues relating to healthcare and benefits, but we are. We haven't seen this as a particular issue for small business at the moment.
At 21 Hats, my hope is often that we can kind of find a way to bring people together over business issues and entrepreneurship. It's kind of what you were saying before. There are a lot of things that we agree about, and immigration being an example that you cited. There are times when I get pretty optimistic that we are crossing lines and bringing people together and finding places where we agree. There are times when I get less optimistic. I sort of suspect that you do the same thing with your organization, and I wonder how you think about that.
Well, look, without trying to get too partisan or political, I mean, there was a time when many of these debates were legitimate policy debates. We've even touched on some of them. We've touched on differences we might have with larger business organizations on issues. And, those debates can be healthy. And quite frankly, any long-term solution that's going to continue for us to have an innovative economy is going to require bipartisanship. But I have to say that it's hard when you look out there at the Republican Party. They just don't seem to have that does not seem to be a focus. There was a time when it was a focus, and you could legitimately disagree and have a debate, and that's healthy. It does not seem to be a focus. I mean, investigating Hunter Biden or passing quote-unquote anti-woke laws in states, which I noticed a couple of governors, that was the first thing they did taking office a few weeks ago, that does not contribute to building a sustainable, healthy economy for all. And so, I am concerned. I'm concerned that the debate has shifted. I would like to see all aspects of the business community come together to at least say, look, that stuff has no place in American politics. We're happy to have healthy debates about policy, but it needs to be relevant to trying to build the kind of economy we want.
To some extent, I hear you agreeing with the Chamber of Commerce again. The head of the chamber, Suzanne Clark, gave a talk last week in which she pointed the finger at government. She didn't specifically point at the Republican Party the way you just did, I don't think, although she has had her battles with Kevin McCarthy. But she just said business is fed up with government and needs to be able to have a certain amount of predictability and certainty in the way the government behaves towards business. Would you agree with that?
Well, she's correct that business of all sizes is frustrated with government. Some of the solutions that the chamber's proposing we agree with, as I said, like immigration and certain aspects of workforce training and that sort of thing. But it isn't. Sometimes I find that the saying that they're frustrated with government then means government should not have any regulations or should eliminate all taxes. And again, I'm not trying to be. That may sound a bit extreme, but that's not the problem. The problem is that we need a government that's actually working to address real issues for entrepreneurs and small businesses. And I think both parties can do a better job of doing that. But I think that, and again, I really hesitate to get parties because we absolutely think that long term there needs to be a robust two-party system to get anything done and have a meaningful change in this country. So it's sad that we see one of the parties just going off the deep end. But so I would agree with that perspective up to a point, and we probably disagree on some of the solutions, but I would like to see responsible business organizations who are also horrified at some of the extremism out there come together and say, come on, let's at least get this back on track. Let's at least get this at a level where we're having a healthy policy debate and not dealing with extraneous incendiary issues.
I think we should point out you do have your issues from time to time with the Democratic Party as well. I think the contractor laws is one area where you may have disagreed with them. Is that right?
We submitted a comment to the proposed Department of Labor change in the rules, and we, of course, endorse the concept of making sure that people aren't inappropriately classified. Obviously, janitors, dishwashers, there should not be independent contractors. But we are concerned that the rule doesn't take into account the fact that you've had this surge in business formation. You've had this surge of people who want to be their own boss, want to do their own thing.
The gig economy.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the term gig economy is a little narrow, and it's a little pejorative too. It's really people wanting to do their own thing, and our focus has been, yes, we want to encourage that. We want to make sure those folks have access to capital, access to benefits that allow them to create quality jobs for themselves and employees, being able to work, operate on a level playing field whether it comes to taxes or unfair competition practices. So, we look at it a little differently. We don't assume it's better to be an employee. We assume you should look at what the relationship is and then make sure that if you are an independent contractor, that you have access, that you're not, there's not an impediment. We basically said some of what's in the proposed rule is okay. We have our biggest concern with some of the standards they've imposed, whether it's an indefinite or continuous relationship, because there are many independent contractors who have long time relationships with clients. They don't want to be, they're adequately paid. They don't want to be employees. And the second is whether their work is integral to the contractor or his business. And often, yes, sometimes you hire somebody to do something and they do the same sort of work you do. It could be a freelance writer for a newspaper. And so, I think they've gone a little too far and they've made it a little unclear now. And I think they need to understand that there are many millions of very legitimate and healthy relationships between independent contractors and the people contracting them, the companies contracting them, and let's not go too far the other way. So we have a bit of a nuanced view of it, and yes, we would, we probably don't agree wholeheartedly with those who are saying we absolutely need to go as far as the rule goes.
One frustration I often hear from business owners is they have the sense that their voices are not being heard in all of this. Do you have any advice for business owners who would like to do more to make sure that entrepreneurs and business owners are represented in these conversations?
Well, they should get involved with organizations and other businesses who are addressing these issues. Obviously, that's what we do. And they can reach out at smallbusinessmajority.org and get in contact with us. We're a national organization. We have team members across the country. And we would love to hear from them. And we would love to help them or guide them in the direction that would help. We have relationships with about 1,500 partners out there who provide various services to small businesses, particularly those in under-resourced communities. And we would love to help. And we've got an organization that kind of rolls up a lot of those smaller business organizations into Alliance for a Resilient Small Business Economy. And so we act as a hub to gather small business voices and to take action and to provide them with education resources. That's what we bring to the table. And we urge them, whether it's us or somebody else, to find out who else is active in these issues in their community and get involved with them.
Did I miss anything, John? Anything you'd like to highlight?
No, I think you've covered that. We didn't talk a lot about we talked about the non-compete agreements, but there are other aspects to what we call level playing field, price discrimination, some of the issues of self-preferencing with high tech. Happy to chat about those at another time. But, again, it's all about, we want to make sure we have policies where there is a level playing field. That's all small businesses are looking for and can compete fairly.
It's funny, we had a similar conversation to this one last January, and I went back and looked at what we talked about, and a couple of the issues we talked about were, one was whether anything more was going to happen with the Restaurant Revitalization Act, and I don't think anything did. And we talked about the likelihood of action being taken to help businesses who were not being given the opportunity to compete fairly on platforms owned by big tech companies. Looking at that, it kind of I wasn't sure whether to think nothing ever changes or wow, it's amazing.
Well, the FTC under the new leader, Lena Khan, has really taken a more sort of, I guess you can use aggressive view on a lot of these issues that are not all tech focused. The non-compete issue, right. The price discrimination issue goes far beyond tech. There were a number of bills in Congress dealing with more antitrust type issues around tech. Unfortunately, those did not get voted on, and we were not happy about that. Senator Klobuchar, Amy Klobuchar, has been a huge proponent of that. And by the way, these bills were bipartisan. The big self-preferencing bill was her and Senator Grassley. So this is actually an area where you have bipartisan support. And so, not as much was done as we would like. We're very happy that the FTC is taking a more affirmative role here. And we'd like to see, if you can find an area that's bipartisan like that, let's run with it.
John Arensmeyer is founder and CEO of Small Business Majority. Thanks for taking the time, John.
Thank you, Loren. Happy to chat.
Really appreciate it. We'll look back on this next year, I suspect, and see how far we got.
Yeah.
Have a great week, everyone.